It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. If you have questions for future editions of Q&A with the Coach, just leave them in the comments down below. By the way, shout out to my sponsor, xmartial.com, for this sweet t-shirt. Apparently I'm a choke dealer. You can be too if you learn some jiu-jitsu. Get yourself not just this shirt, but 10% off literally everything on their website at xmartial.com by using my discount code Ramsey10. Now on with the question. Our friend Fred sends in this. Hey Ramsey, in relation to this talk about combat Tai Chi, we were talking about martial arts that have a reputation for being wimpy, and some people try to make them sound tough by adding the word combat in front of them, like combat Aikido, combat Taekwondo, combat Tai Chi, and often it turns into something kind of silly. I would love to hear your thought on the difference between teaching/training style and martial arts style. Traditional jiu-jitsu trains basically the same throws as judo, but the pedagogical style is vastly different. Does it maybe make more sense to describe how you train instead of what style you train? Absolutely. Anyways, great stuff, and so happy you participated in the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship. So many fun and great things came out of it. Okay, thanks, Fred. Thanks for the question and the comments. Pedagogical style versus martial arts style. So yeah, a lot of martial arts use the exact same techniques. For example, we see wrist locks in Aikido and people laugh at it like, ah, that would never work. And we see those exact same wrist locks in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and people are like, stop torturing the white belts with wrist locks. It's not cool, man. It's mean.
I think I'm bleeding. Oh. From a pimple that popped open or something.
I got AIDS again, I'm gonna be pissed.
Again?
And once in a while we see those wrist locks win jiu-jitsu tournaments. And once in a while, I pull off wrist locks in MMA sparring. It's kind of fun to be able to pull off a move people think is silly, and you can still do it with a fairly high degree of accuracy. So what's the difference between the way, say, Aikido people train their wrist locks and the way, say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners train their wrist locks? Well, it depends on the school you go to. Obviously, I can't speak for all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools because I've been to a lot of them, and they're all quite different. They're all quite different. A lot of them, you walk into the doors, you'll spend the first 15 minutes doing some kind of warm-up where you do a bunch of exercises and shrimp across the mat and this sort of stuff, and then you'll go to others where they just jump straight into the technique. A lot of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies will spend like 30 minutes repping out some new move of the day, and then they'll spend the rest of the time rolling or sparring, and that's it. Some of them will spend an exhaustive amount of time doing positional sparring or positional drills, which is a very different thing than just free sparring, where you're learning and reinforcing very specific skill sets. So they're not all created equal. Just because the sign above the door says Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't mean you're going to have the same experience. In the Jiu-Jitsu community, a lot of people riff on, say, the Gracie Academy Online. Like somebody says, I'm a Gracie Academy Online blue belt or whatever. And people will be like, ha 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 ha, your Jiu-Jitsu sucks. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? Henner and Hiron are awesome, and I love them so much, and their information is good. And they might wonder, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between saying getting some online jiu-jitsu course where you learn how to do the upa and escape from mount, and you learn how to shrimp and regard and all this stuff, all the same techniques you will learn in a live jiu-jitsu academy, and say an online course? What's the difference? Well, the pedagogical approach is different. That's just a fancy word for the teaching method. The teaching method is different. When you have a live instructor, it's obviously very different than having an online instructor. Hands-on teaching is importantly different than distance teaching or remote teaching or pre-recorded video teaching or learning from a book. These can all be valid sources of learning and in different scenarios, and we can have different learning experiences from them, but different thing. My first martial art that I trained in was Taekwondo, and I had the opportunity to train with a number of different Taekwondo instructors in a number of different dojos. And I learned immediately it's not the same martial art from one school to another, from one instructor to another. I had one instructor who was very sport-based. It was all about how to score points in tournaments, how to do the Olympic-style sparring method, and that's fine. That's great. And I had another instructor who I honestly think he had PTSD, and he was like, "This is not a game. This is war. Prepare to die." And he was like, "For the streets." He was like, actually reminded me a little bit of Master Wong, to be honest. And I had another instructor, all he wanted to do was break stuff, smash stuff, power, 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 let's break boards, let's make bricks, let's do demos. And, you know, it was interesting. These different teaching method approaches to Taekwondo, essentially making it a completely different martial art. And all of these guys knew each other. They all trained together. But I had a radically different experience with every one of them. So again, just because the sign on the door says, we train this style, we train Taekwondo, we train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we train Aikido, you're not going to have the same experience. You might wear the same uniform. You might pay dues to the same governing body, if it's one of those deals. But you're not going to have the exact same experience. You might learn some of the same techniques. We've been over that, right? But you won't have the same experience. So, you didn't ask this specifically, but what are better forms of pedagogical style? What are the better teaching methods? If it gives you the result you want, that's the right way. So if all you want out of martial arts is to train in your garage with a couple of friends, maybe Henner and Huron's course is ideal for you. If you want to go above and beyond that and become a jiu-jitsu world champion, obviously that's not the way. So the method that is ideal really is the method which is consistent with your goals. Do you want to be a cage fighter? Then maybe the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school that specializes in IBJJF tournaments is not the best option. Whereas the MMA Academy that also has a Jiu-Jitsu program and maybe has produced successful Jiu-Jitsu fighters who've transitioned to MMA, maybe that would be, right? And people are like, but what about the streets, self-defense? Do we really have any reliable data on that? I want to know, do we really have any reliable data on a self-defense program, any self-defense program out there that has produced consistent and reliable and measurable results? I don't think we have. We can't really quantify that, like our school has produced 3 champions in the street who haven't been shot or stabbed yet. Like, that's not quite the same thing as our school has produced a UFC fighter or a UFC champion or a WK kickboxing champion or something like that. How do we measure success? This is a fascinating question. I've been thinking about this for quite some time. And it's a very important question for everybody who is a martial arts instructor to think about. And I know some martial arts instructors watch this channel, and I hope you do think about it. How is your teaching method different from the teaching methods of other people who share the same name of style as you? Are they experiencing greater success than you? Why? Does it have something to do with their teaching method? Or maybe it's just all marketing. I don't know. In either case, we do need to pay attention. Why do people keep going to that one and not this one? Are they just more fun? Maybe. Maybe it's not a bad idea to be a fun teacher as well as an informative one. Anyway, Fred, thank you so much for the question. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.